So this is the curriculum for FreeCodeCamp.org, and I will go through the section of basic HTML and HTML5. So what they're saying is that opening tags look like this with a H1, and a closing tag looks like this, and I will just add the word world and run the tests, and we see that it passes. So if I move on to the next challenge, the next challenge is about headlines. So in HTML you have H1 elements, which are the biggest titles, and you have up to 6 different headline elements, and each element is smaller. So the higher the number, the smaller the title will be. So I will just print out how they all look like. And an H6 element is the smallest one. So they want 2 tags. So the first one is the H1 tag, and the H2 tag should have the text cat photo app, and the first one should have hello world. And if I run the test, it passes. So I'll move on to the next challenge. Which is about paragraphs. So you create a paragraph with the P element, and P is short for paragraph. So I will add a P element under the H2. With the text hello paragraph, and elements always are written in lowercase, so you don't write it in uppercase like this with a big P, but you just write it with lowercase. And I'll run the tests and it passes. So the next challenge is about placeholders. So usually when you create a mockup, you don't have real text, but you use fake text, which is called lorem ipsum. And if you just go to you can just Google lorem ipsum, and you will find a generator which will generate the text for you. You just specify the amount of characters. So I will just copy this text and paste it inside of the P element, and if I run the test, it passes. So the next challenge is about comments in HTML, which are usually used for 2 reasons. So the first reason is to ignore code. So a good way to ignore code is by commenting it out. And the other big reason for why you would want comments is to explain the code that you write. So you can make code inactive by commenting it out, and you can also comment your code by writing a comment and explain what your code is doing. So now I will comment out H1 and H2. I will actually comment everything out, and I will run the test, and we see that it works. And we also see that if I keep it commented out, you see that the page is completely blank. And if I remove the comments, you see that the text is visible. So in this challenge, you comment out the H1 element and the P element, but not the H2. Right now everything is commented out, so I will just I will close this comment, and I will open a new comment here, and now the only thing that's visible on the page is the h2 element. So if I run the test, we see that it works. And now what they want us to do is to delete an HTML element. So all you want to do is to remove this line of code and run the test, and it works. In this challenge, they introduced the HTML5 elements. So HTML in the earlier versions have the elements which we saw before, the paragraph elements in the H1 and H2. But in HTML5, you have more semantic elements, which are descriptive types of elements, and the search engines will read your page in a much clearer way when you have these descriptive elements. So even though a div element is the same or has the same behavior and look as a main or a footer element, there's no real difference in terms of rendering the element. It still has a difference in terms of semantics, so it's much more descriptive and it helps with accessibility and search engine optimization. So in this challenge, what they want us to do is to create a second p element with the following text. So I'll just create a p element and close it like this and paste the text inside of it. And then I will create a main element which will serve as a wrapper for the two paragraphs. So the two paragraphs will be inside of the main element, and I will indent it like that and remove the spaces, and I will run the tests, and we see that it works.